My mother-in-law, Wang Tsuehua, is a remarkable woman. She always manages to bring home the most space-consuming, useless junk from the trash heap, until that weekend, when she hauled back half a carved wooden door from the Republican era. The words I had held back for 3 years finally burst out. "Mom, let the trash go, let it be reincarnated." Upon hearing this, the mother-in-law looked up and said with righteous indignation, "This wood is so sturdy, it would make a great little coffee table." "We don't need a coffee table," my husband Zhou Hao timidly interjected. My mother-in-law shot him a glare, then turned back to wipe the wooden door, muttering under her breath, "Those who don't manage the household don't know the cost of firewood and rice." I let out a sigh. Since my mother-in-law showed no sign of remorse, don't blame me for resorting to underhanded tactics. I walked over and crouched down beside her. "Mom, I'd like to discuss something with you." "If you want me to throw this door away, don't throw it," I interrupted her. "I want to give you a suggestion." My mother-in-law stopped wiping the door and looked at me suspiciously. "What suggestion?" "Look, you spend most of your day hauling things back, only to sell them for a few cents. It's just not worth it. But what if you used the same time and effort to collect things that are truly valuable?" "What do you mean by truly valuable?" The old woman perked up with interest. I pulled out my phone and opened a video. "Look at this, a live stream of bargain hunting at an antique market. This guy bought a string of beads for $50 and sold it for 30,000. The mother-in-law's eyes lit up. "And this one, at a flea market, an old lady picked up a broken bowl for 200 yuan. An expert appraised it as a fine piece from a folk kiln, worth 80,000. The mother-in-law's breathing quickened. I played my trump card. "A Shanghai auntie found a complete set of 1953 stamps in a demolition building, and the auction house appraised them at 600,000. 600,000. The rag in my mother-in-law's hand fell to the floor. Zhou Hao coughed violently beside me. "Honey, aren't these examples a bit too extreme?" I shot him a glare and continued my persuasion on my mother-in-law. "Mom, you have the passion, the time, and the energy. All you need is a bit of professional knowledge." My mother-in-law looked at me as if she had just seen a god of wealth. "Can you teach me?" she asked cautiously. "I can help you get started," I smiled, "but the rest is up to you." Mother-in-law nodded vigorously, her heart filled with joy, and her expression turned devout. I worked efficiently and drafted the treasure hunt plan for my mother-in-law overnight. 1. Equipment upgrade. Discard the tattered cloth bag and replace it with an outdoor waste pack with multiple pockets. Equipped with a high-power flashlight, magnifying glass, gloves, and sealable bags. 2. Knowledge preparation. Spend 1 hour each day watching treasure appraisal videos, focusing on learning how to spot obvious fakes and potentially genuine items. 3. Practical principle. Better to miss out than to buy wrong. Any item over $50 must be approved via video call. 4. Profit-sharing mechanism. For any bargains found, Granny takes 70%, Master takes 30%. Ahem. Master naturally refers to me. If Granny really does find some treasure and I get nothing, I'd feel quite uneasy. My mother-in-law held the printed plan in her hands, overwhelmed with emotion. Her voice choked up. "Wei, in the past, I only picked up worthless things. Was I particularly useless?" I patted her hand and comforted her, saying, "In the past, you just hadn't found the right way to pick up trash. But now that I'm here to teach you, go ahead and pick it up boldly." Zhou Hao stood by, rubbing his forehead, feeling that something big was about to happen at home. Speaking of picking up trash, no, picking up treasures, Grandma was learning with exceptional seriousness. She no longer rummaged through trash bins for plastic bottles. Instead, she carried a waste bag every day, wandering around antique markets, second-hand markets, and old street demolition areas like a secret agent. In the evenings, she would return home and watch treasure appraisal videos on her tablet, murmuring to herself, "Glaze luster, natural patina, thick body." Occasionally, she would even study the bowls and plates in our house, which scared Zhou Hao so much that he quickly hid the bone china dinnerware he had bought for their wedding. First time at a real market, my mother-in-law took a fancy to a Qing Dynasty snuff bottle from a street stall. The vendor asked for 300, but she bargained it down to 80, then excitedly video called me. I zoomed in on the screen for 10 seconds and mercilessly pointed out, "Mom, there's a microwave-safe stamp on the bottom. The Qing Dynasty probably didn't have that technology." Mother-in-law, the second time, she took a fancy to a purple clay teapot. "The shopkeeper said it's by Gu Jingzhou," she whispered, as if conducting an underground deal. I sighed. Gu Jingzhou's teapots wouldn't be displayed at a street stall, and certainly not with a 2 for 15 yuan price tag. Mother-in-law returned dejectedly, her purse empty. Show how comforted her. Mom, take it slow, finding hidden treasures relies on fate. No, mother-in-law's eyes blazed with fierce determination. I refused to believe it. The turning point came on the weekend of the third week. My mother-in-law left early in the morning, saying she was going to try her luck in an old village on the outskirts that was almost completely demolished. At 3 in the afternoon, she returned. She was holding a dirty cloth bundle in her hands, her expression a mix of excitement and guilt. Mom, what is this? Shohao stepped forward to greet her. The mother-in-law ignored him, walked straight to the dining table, and carefully set down the cloth bundle. She unwrapped it, layer by layer. What was finally revealed was a dusty porcelain jar. The jar was about 30 centimeters tall, with a straight mouth, a bulging belly, and a ring foot. The glaze is an unremarkable bluish-gray, with numerous soil stains and scratches on the surface, making it look rather ordinary. What's this? Shohao leaned in for a closer look. A pickling jar. Shut up. It was rare for mother-in-law to be so harsh with her son. She turned to me, her voice trembling. Wei, you, take a look at this. I walked over. To be honest, I don't understand porcelain either, but my mother-in-law's condition made me feel a bit unusual. Where did it come from? I asked. From the very end of the old village. In an old house that's about to collapse. The old woman swallowed hard. The homeowner moved away long ago, and the door is already rotten. I went inside, just to take a look. This jar was in the corner of the stove, covered in thick dust. I thought the shape was a bit interesting. How much? Shohao asked the key question. The old woman's voice grew even softer. And no money. The house was abandoned, so I just picked it up. Shohao gasped in shock. Mom, this counts as stealing. It counts as finding a bargain, the mother-in-law retorted, her face flushed with indignation. I crouched down to take a closer look at the jar. The jar was indeed old. The glaze is warm and smooth, even with dust covering it. You can still see the delicate luster. The bottom has exposed clay. The body is firm and dense, with natural fire marks. Most importantly, on the belly of the jar, there are faintly engraved patterns, obscured by grime and hard to see clearly. My heart skipped a beat. Mom, go wash your hands first. Shohao, go get the high-power flashlight from my study. My mother-in-law, as if receiving a royal decree, trotted off to wash her hands. Shohao looked bewildered as he went to get the flashlight. I took the flashlight, adjusted the angle, and let the light sweep along the surface of the jar. Under the side lighting, those faintly carved patterns emerged, entwined lotus vines, with smooth lines and skilled craftsmanship. Honey, what are you looking at? Shohao leaned in. I ignored him, took out my phone, opened a video from a treasure appraisal YouTuber I often watch, found the episode about Yuan Dynasty blue and white jars, paused it, and compared. The shape somewhat resembles it. The patterns also somewhat resemble it, but I'm not an expert, so I can't be sure. Mom, I put down the flashlight. Tomorrow we'll go find someone to take a look. Who? My mother-in-law asked nervously. My college classmate's uncle, I said, a retired senior expert from the provincial museum, surnamed Su. He helps people appraise items at the Idle Cloud Studio, in the antique market on weekends. His fees aren't high, but his eye is sharp. My mother-in-law couldn't hide her excitement. If it really is something valuable, that would be a great start to your treasure hunting journey. I held her hand. But Mom, we need to be prepared. There's a 99.9% chance this is just an ordinary pickling jar. Mother-in-law nodded vigorously, but the light in her eyes was frighteningly bright. That night, the atmosphere in our house was eerie. The jar was placed on the desk in the study, with a soft cloth underneath it. Every 10 minutes, mother-in-law would go to the door to take a look. Like a hen guarding a golden egg, Shohao pulled me into the bedroom. Honey, do you really think that thing? Who knows, I said honestly, but Mom needs some encouragement. Even if it turns out to be fake in the end, she'll still have enjoyed the process. What if it's real? Shohao said. I fell silent for a few seconds. Mom really has a natural talent, and our family is about to strike it rich. Shohao scratched his head. I'm a bit nervous. I'm nervous too, but more than that, I'm looking forward to it. Early the next morning, our family of 3, as if escorting a national treasure, held that cloth-wrapped bundle and took a taxi to the antique market. Idle Cloud Studio was located at the very back of the antique market. The shop wasn't large, but it was tastefully arranged. Mr. Su was a lean old man, wearing a pair of reading glasses, and was in the middle of brewing tea. My classmate had already made the arrangements. Old Su looked at us, his gaze settling on the cloth bundle. Take it out. The old woman's hands trembled so badly that it took her 3 tries to untie the cloth bundle. The moment the jar was revealed, old Sue's expression changed. He put on gloves, took out a magnifying glass, and circled the jar once. Then he carefully picked it up, first examining the rim, then the belly, and finally turning it over to look at the base. Throughout the whole process, the shop was so quiet you could hear our heartbeats. 10 minutes later, Mr. Su put down the jar and took off his glasses to wipe them. "Where did this come from?" he asked. The mother-in-law stammered through the explanation. Old Su nodded and looked at us. "What outcome are you hoping for?" I was taken aback. "Old Su, what do you mean?" "This piece," Old Su said slowly, "is a celadon jar from the Longquan kiln of the Yuan dynasty. The firestone red at the bottom is natural, indicating it's an authentic antique, not a modern imitation." My mother-in-law's legs gave way, and Zhou Hao quickly caught her. How much is it worth?" Zhou Hao's voice trembled. Mr. Su pondered for a moment. "If it were to be auctioned, after cleaning and maintenance, the starting bid wouldn't be less than 200,000. If it catches the eye of a collector who truly appreciates it, it could even double in value." 200,000, my mother-in-law murmured, repeating the figure, before her eyes rolled back. Mom. 5 minutes later, my mother-in-law slowly regained consciousness on the recliner in the back hall, still clutching the jar tightly in her hands. Old Su poured me a cup of tea. "Your mother is quite lucky. A complete piece of Longquan kiln porcelain from the Yuan dynasty is rarely seen on the market these days." However, the old house she mentioned was likely owned by a wealthy family in the past, during the chaos of war. They probably couldn't take their belongings with them and buried them near the stove. My mind is still in a daze. "Old Su, what should we do now?" "2 options. Old Su held up 2 fingers. "First, I can introduce you to a reliable auction house and go through the auction process. It takes longer, but the price might be higher. Second, I have an old friend who specializes in collecting Longquan kiln pieces. I can arrange a private deal. The price might be lower, but it's faster." I look at my mother-in-law, holding the jar. Her gaze gradually focuses, and then she reveals a particularly sly smile. "Vivi, what do you think? Should we go take another look at that old house?" Zhou Hao and I both shudder simultaneously. Old Su, however, smiled and said, "This lady has real potential." Stepping out of Idle Cloud Studio, the sunlight was blinding. The old woman held the newly wrapped jar, her back straight as a rod, walking with a brisk, determined pace. As she passed by the street stalls she used to frequent, a vendor greeted her. "Sister Wang, not browsing today?" The mother-in-law nodded reservedly. "It's been a busy day." After walking a bit further, she whispered to me, "Out of 10 items on that stall, 11 are fake. How come I never noticed before?" Zhou Hao leaned in. "Mom, how are you feeling now?" Mother-in-law stopped in her tracks, looked at us, and her eyes suddenly reddened. "How's Wei?" "This is the first time in my life I've felt pretty awesome." My nose tingled with emotion. Zhou Hao put his arm around his mother's shoulder. "Mom, you've always been awesome. It's different." The mother-in-law shook her head and patted the cloth bag in her arms. "This time, it's the real deal." On the way home, the mother-in-law made a decision. No auction, just a private transaction. "Money in hand is what feels secure," she said. "Besides, the person introduced by Old Su is reliable." 3 days later, the transaction was completed. Mr. Su's friend personally came to the door, inspected the goods, and transferred the money, 250,000, when the phone's text message alert sounded. My mother-in-law stared at that string of numbers for a full 5 minutes. Then she looked up and said to me and Zhou Hao, "I don't want this money." We were all stunned. "Mom, this is what you picked up," Zhou Hao said anxiously. "Let me finish." My mother-in-law interrupted him. "This money, 50% goes into the family fund, 30% goes to Wei, and the rest," she looked at me. "Vivi, help me open an account, specifically for studying." "Studying?" I asked, puzzled. "Yes." My mother-in-law's gaze was resolute. "Buying books, taking online courses, finding a teacher. I want to truly learn how to see things, not always rely on luck." Zhou Hao and I exchanged a glance, both seeing the pride in Grandma's eyes. Grandma continued, "From now on, I'll need to adjust my work schedule, mornings for studying, afternoons for practice. How about we take a family trip to the old villages nearby on the weekend?" she said at the end, a bit embarrassed, as if seeking our approval. I smiled and nodded vigorously. "Okay." Zhou Hao also laughed. "Mom, you're about to become our family's chief treasure hunter." My mother-in-law didn't laugh. Instead, she said seriously, "How's Wei? it was my fault for making the house such a mess before. Mom, you all let Mom change, and even taught her how to change for the better. Mother-in-law held our hands. Mom understands everything in her heart. Her hands were rough, but warm and strong. From then on, the content of our family meetings changed. It was no longer how to persuade Mom not to pick up trash, but how to develop a scientific treasure hunting plan. My mother-in-law earnestly took notes in her little notebook. Next week, focus on learning the characteristics of porcelain body and glaze. The flea market gets new stock every Wednesday. You have to go early. Keep a close eye on the demolition progress in those old towns in the suburbs. Zhou Hao whispered to me, "Honey, why do I feel like Mom is having a second spring?" I pinched him, but my heart was full. Before going to bed, my mother-in-law knocked on our door and handed me an envelope. "Vivi, keep this." I opened it to find a thick stack of money inside. "Mom, what is this?" "Tuition," my mother-in-law said earnestly. "We agreed on it back then. Have you forgotten?" I clutched the envelope, my throat tightening. My mother-in-law teased, "I'll have to rely on you to teach me from now on, master." With that, she turned and went back into the house. Her steps light and brisk, I leaned against the doorframe, watching her figure disappear at the end of the corridor. Outside the window, the moonlight was as clear as water. The pothose on the balcony has sprouted new leaves again. This feeling is truly wonderful. During the first week of practice, my mother-in-law's performance was nothing short of magical. She got up early, dressed neatly, and with a backpack full of equipment, she marched off to Idle Cloud Studio with great vigor. When she returned in the evening, she looked as wilted as frostbitten eggplant. "What's wrong, Mom?" I asked. My mother-in-law slumped on the sofa, listless and weak. Today an old man came in, showing Mr. Su a Qianlong imperial kiln vase. As soon as I saw the painting style, I was sure it was a fake, but after examining it, Mr. Su said it was genuine. Mr. Su told me the vase was authentic, but it had been restored from a damaged piece. The restorer's skill was so exceptional that the seams were nearly invisible. Mr. Su identified it by the slight convexity of the glaze and the pattern of the bubbles. As she spoke, she pulled a small notebook from her bag and quickly jotted down key points. High-level restoration is hard to detect. Check the smoothness of the glaze and the naturalness of the bubbles. The next day, she went out full of confidence, only to return with her head hanging low. Today it was a jade pendant. I thought the material looked warm and smooth, the carving was fluid, and the patina seemed natural, so I believed it was from the Warring States period. But Mr. Su took one look and said it was new, artificially aged with acid. Why, the patina was too uniform. Genuine ancient jade has a layered, transitional patina, and the mother-in-law took out her notebook again. The patina on genuine ancient jade is formed through years of wear and tear, while the patina on imitations is artificially polished, so the luster is different. Later, she simply stopped going out, holding her tablet and cramming on jade identification topics. Zhou Hao whispered to me, "Honey, if Mom had put this much effort into studying back when she was preparing for the college entrance exam, getting into Tsinghua or Peking University wouldn't have been a dream," I replied. "She's even more serious about this than she would have been about getting into Tsinghua or Peking University." Time flew by in the blink of an eye. One day, my mother-in-law suddenly sent me a message, "Weiwei, come quickly, bring our electronic scale." I was completely baffled, but I still grabbed the kitchen scale and rushed over. Inside the Idle Cloud Studio, Mr. Su was talking to a middle-aged man. On the table sat a bronze incense burner with 3 legs, a bulging belly, double handles, and a surface covered in green patina. My mother-in-law pulled me aside, her eyes gleaming. "See that incense burner? The man said it's a family heirloom and wants to sell it." Mr. Su took a look and said it's a Ming Dynasty imitation of a song piece, estimated to be worth around 20,000, and then, while they were talking, I took a closer look. The patina is fine, the casting technique is correct, but the weight is off. Wait. The mother-in-law signaled for me to be quiet, leaned close to Mr. Su, and whispered a few words. Mr. Su raised an eyebrow and looked at the middle-aged man. "This lady says she wants to weigh your incense burner again. What do you think?" The middle-aged man nodded indifferently. The mother-in-law had me place the electronic scale on the table and carefully set the incense burner on it. The numbers flickered. 872 grams. The mother-in-law immediately pulled out a copy of Historical Reference for Bronze Vessel Weights from her bag, quickly flipped through the pages, and then pointed to a specific line for Old Su to see. Old Su leaned in to look, squinting his eyes. He picked up the incense burner again, weighed it in his hand, carefully examined the base and the handles, and then said to the middle-aged man, "Sir, this incense burner of yours might not be a Ming Dynasty imitation." The middle-aged man was taken aback. Mr. Su said slowly, "Ming Dynasty imitations of Song Dynasty burners were intentionally made heavier, but genuine Song Dynasty burners have thin, lightweight bodies and feel light to the touch. The weight of yours is almost exactly the same as the recorded standard weight of a Song Dynasty tripod burner." The middle-aged man's jaw dropped. In the end, that incense burner was purchased by Mr. Su's friend for 80,000 yuan. The middle-aged man left. Expressing his gratitude profusely, Mr. Su turned to look at the elderly woman, his eyes filled with admiration. "Ms. Wang, your observational skills are impressive. The detail about the weight is something many seasoned collectors often overlook." The mother-in-law's face was as red as an apple. I just read about it in a book and thought I'd give it a try." Many people read books, but few can apply what they learn in real situations. I didn't misjudge your potential. Old Su didn't hold back on the praise. On the way back, the mother-in-law held my arm, walking as if she were floating. "Vivi, have I finally graduated today?" "Not just graduated, you've surpassed your master," I said earnestly. She smiled, but as she did, her eyes grew red again. "Mom, why are you?" "Mom is happy." She wiped her eyes. "For the first time in my life, I feel that brains are more useful than strength." That night, a line of bold text was added to the mother-in-law's notebook. "Appraising treasures requires attention to detail. Details never lie." Grandma returned from her studies, and the treasure hunt officially resumed. We went to the largest flea market in the city. This time, Grandma came prepared. For porcelain, examine the body and glaze. For bronze, inspect the patina. For jade, look at the craftsmanship marks. For wood, check the patina. Zhou Hao followed behind her, like a bag-carrying sidekick, wandering into the third section. Grandma stopped in front of a used book stall. The stall owner was an old man with glasses, engrossed in reading a book titled Ci Hua. The stall was piled high with old books, magazines, newspapers, and a jumble of letters, notebooks, and vintage photographs. The mother-in-law crouched down and began to search. She searched very carefully, examining each book one by one, looking at the cover, the title page, and the copyright page. Zhou Hao wanted to help, but she glared at him and said, "You don't understand, don't mess with it." I stood by, watching as the mother-in-law pulled out a dusty, nearly coverless booklet from beneath a pile of yellowed, red flag magazines. The booklet was very thin, about 30 or 40 pages, and the paper had become brittle. On the cover, 4 characters were written in brush calligraphy, travel notes of streams and mountains. The old woman carefully opened it. The inner pages were written in vertical columns of traditional Chinese characters. Handwritten with a brush, in a neat and elegant script, the contents seemed like travel notes, recording visits to certain mountains on specific dates, describing the scenery seen, and expressing the emotions felt. I can't understand it, I just think the handwriting is quite good. But after looking through a few pages, my mother-in-law suddenly started breathing rapidly. She took out a magnifying glass, carefully examined the paper, ink, and binding of the booklet for a long time, and then flipped to the last page. There was a small, square red seal. The characters on the seal are in seal script, which I can't read, but my mother-in-law recognized them. She had just crammed knowledge of book collection seals from various dynasties a few days ago. "Boss, how much for this book?" The old stall owner looked up and glanced at it. "That one, $5. Just a pile of old paper. If you want it, add 2 more. And you can take that stack of letters next to it too." Without a word, the old woman took out 7 yuan and handed it over, then carefully wrapped the booklet and the stack of letters, tucking them into the innermost layer of her backpack. "Mom," Zhou Hao asked curiously, "what is that?" The old woman hugged her backpack tightly. "Let's go home." Back home, my mother-in-law didn't even bother to change her shoes and went straight to the study. She locked the door and stayed inside for a full 2 hours. Zhou Hao and I were restless in the living room. "Honey, did Mom find another treasure?" "I don't know, but judging by her reaction, it doesn't seem like an ordinary old book." 2 hours later, the study door opened. My mother-in-law walked out, her face beaming with joy. She called Zhou Hao and me to the dining table, then took out that small booklet from her backpack, carefully placing it on a soft cloth. "What is this?" I asked. My mother-in-law took a deep breath. "If I'm not mistaken, this is a manuscript by the Qing dynasty scholar Shen Fu." Zhou Hao and I were both stunned. Shen Fu, the Shen Fu who wrote 6 records of a floating life. The mother-in-law pointed at the booklet. This Travels of Streams and Mountains, judging by the handwriting, paper quality, ink color, and seals, should be Shenfu's manuscript from his later years of travels. Zhou Hao stammered. Then, how much is it worth? Priceless. The mother-in-law shook her head. If it truly is Shenfu's manuscript, this is a major literary discovery. It shouldn't be sold for money, it should be donated to a museum or research institution. Donated. Zhou Hao grew anxious. Mom, that's, Haozi, his mother-in-law interrupted him, her gaze resolute. Some things are more important than money. She looked at me. Weiwei, do you know anyone at the Cultural Bureau or a university? We need to find a real expert to confirm this. My mind raced. My master's advisor is now a professor in the College of Liberal Arts at Normal University, specializing in Qing dynasty prose. Should I contact him? Good, mother-in-law nodded. The sooner, the better. I immediately called my advisor. After I briefly described the situation, my advisor's voice changed. Don't move, I'll bring the tools right away. An hour later, the advisor arrived at my home with 2 graduate students. When they saw that booklet, the expressions on all 3 of their faces were as if they had seen an alien. The advisor put on white gloves, took out a professional cultural relic detection light, and examined the booklet inch by inch. 2 graduate students stood by, holding their breath as they recorded. The living room was eerily quiet. Half an hour later, the supervisor straightened up, took off his glasses, and wiped them. He looked at the elderly woman and asked respectfully, "How did you discover this?" My mother-in-law honestly recounted what had happened. The mentor sighed deeply. Fate, truly fate, I cautiously asked. Is this really it? The mentor nodded. Although final confirmation requires instrument testing, based on my experience, it's almost certainly genuine. My mother-in-law's legs gave way, and I quickly steadied her. The professor said sincerely, "If you agree, I would like to represent the College of Literature to temporarily borrow this manuscript for research, and I will apply for a discovery reward for you." "I don't want the reward," my mother-in-law said. "I just want to know, is this thing useful?" "It is useful," the mentor said excitedly, "if it is ultimately confirmed to be Shenfu's manuscript. This is a major discovery in the academic world." Grandma smiled, and as she smiled, tears fell. "It's good that it's useful, it's good that it's useful." That night, Grandma didn't sleep. She sat on the balcony, looking at those 2 pots of potholes for a long time. I knew exactly what she was thinking. For a lifetime, she felt useless. She relied on collecting scrap to supplement the family income, yet she made a mess of the house. Now, she has found something that could change an entire academic field. This kind of value is far heavier than money. After the incident of Shenfu's manuscript at the Normal University, my mother-in-law gained some recognition within the circle. Even the former director of the Provincial Museum personally paid a visit. Thus, my mother-in-law took on a new role, volunteer for the collection of folk cultural relics at the Provincial Museum. Assisting the museum in collecting cultural relics comes with a reward. As per regulations, the items handled by my mother-in-law have long been valued at over 10 million. Yet she never takes an extra cent. Once, a small painting by a Ming Dynasty artist was collected, and the donor's family was in financial difficulty. My mother-in-law even contributed her own reward money to help them. Curator Qin felt uneasy about it, but my mother-in-law said, "Having the piece in the museum is better than keeping it in my hands. As long as the money is enough to get by, that's all that matters." It's definitely enough, through picking up bargains and collecting rewards. The balance in Granny's account grew at an astonishing rate, but she had very few places to spend money, aside from buying books, taking online courses, and occasionally treating experts to meals for advice. "The biggest expense is buying things for us. Vivi, this bag suits you, take it to work. Haozi, this suit is made of good fabric, wear it when meeting clients. If we refuse, she gets anxious." Mom has money, more than I can spend. When my company was facing cash flow difficulties, my mother-in-law didn't ask for reasons and directly transferred money. "Vivi, let me know if it's not enough." I later repaid her double the amount. Since my mother-in-law wouldn't accept any interest, I used that money to enroll her in a high-end art appreciation workshop in Beijing, 3 months long, with tuition in the 6 figures. My mother-in-law scolded me for spending recklessly, but on the day she left for Beijing, she quietly told me, "Vivi, Mom's life has been worth it." After returning from the training course, my mother-in-law's perspective had changed once again. She began systematically studying cultural relic restoration, preservation, and exhibition design. When the new museum building was under construction, she was even invited to participate in discussions about the flow design of the exhibition halls. The lighting shouldn't be too bright, it damages the fabrics. The sealing of the display case must be done well. With temperature and humidity control being key, the font on this display board is too small, elderly people can't see it clearly. Her opinions are always carefully considered by the professional team, because she truly understands, not in books, but in the objects I've touched, seen, and restored. A year ago, our family decided to move to a new house. My mother-in-law made the final decision: if we're moving, let's go for a big one, I'll cover the cost. We visited over a dozen properties and finally settled on this spacious Riverview apartment. Grandma loves the 30-square-meter balcony the most. You can grow so many flowers here, and you can even set up a tea table to enjoy the river view. During the renovation, Grandma only made one request: make the study room a bit bigger for me. So, the new home has a 40-square-meter study room. One wall is a floor-to-ceiling bookshelf, crammed with my mother-in-law's collection from the past 2 years. The opposite wall is a display cabinet, showcasing souvenirs from her treasure-hunting career, a tattered cloth bag that once held a Lonquan kiln jar, a treasure hunter coin keychain gifted by a street vendor, a volunteer certificate issued by the museum. Hanging in the most prominent spot in the study is a calligraphy piece, personally inscribed by Director Cheen. Discerning eyes recognize treasures. The merit lies in passing them on. Grandma spends a long time in the study every day. Sometimes she reads, sometimes she organizes materials, and sometimes she just quietly gazes at that wall. She says these are all her medals of honor. Now, the hot pot on the dining table is bubbling away. The lamb is ready. I pick up a piece for my mother-in-law. Mom, try this. It's lamb from Inner Mongolia. My mother-in-law takes a bite and nods, tender. Zhou Hao pours her another drink. Mom, have a little more, we're celebrating today. I can't drink anymore. The mother-in-law waved her hand. I'll get dizzy if I have any more. But the corners of her eyes and brows were filled with smiles. Halfway through the meal, the mother-in-law suddenly said, by the way, the museum is hosting a special exhibition next month, and Director Cheen has asked me to be the curatorial consultant. Zhou Hao gave a thumbs up. Impressive, Mom. A curatorial consultant, that's expert-level stuff. I just helped pick out a few things, her mother-in-law said modestly, though her eyes sparkled. Outside the window, the colored lights of a cruise ship glided across the river, like a flowing galaxy. This scene, I wouldn't have dared to dream of it 2 years ago. Back then, the house was piled with garbage. My mother-in-law was stubborn, Zhou Hao was indecisive, and I was utterly exhausted. Now, the home is spacious and bright. My mother-in-law is confident and composed. Zhou Hao has a successful career, and I am content. The starting point of change, it was actually my half-resigned, half-calculating remark. Mom, I need to discuss something with you. As the hot pot meal was winding down, my mother-in-law set down her chopsticks and looked at us. Howsy, Weiwei, she said softly, there's something I've been wanting to say. We all fell silent. In my life, the thing I'm most proud of isn't how much money I've picked up, nor how many treasures I've helped the museum find. My mother-in-law paused for a moment. It's walking with the two of you all the way to today. Zhou Hao tightly held my hand. My mother-in-law's eyes grew slightly red. Howsy has become an entrepreneur, and Weiwei has become an artist. Our family has moved from a 90-square-meter-old, dilapidated small apartment to this spacious riverside flat. But what Mom treasures most in her heart is the three of us, safe and sound, sitting here, sharing this reunion meal. I couldn't hold back my tears, neither could Zhou Hao. My mother-in-law smiled, reaching out to wipe her eyes. It's the new year, let's not talk about these things. Come, eat, the food is getting cold. But that night, we talked until very late. We talked about the old experts from the Forbidden City that my mother-in-law met in her training class, about Zhou Hao's company's new projects, and about the international design exhibition I'll be participating in next year. We talked about the fun stories of finding hidden treasures in the past, and about the places we want to visit in the future. How much better can this family get? Late at night, Zhou Hao, a bit drunk, went back to his room to sleep first. My mother-in-law and I stood on the balcony. The river breeze was slightly cool, but the house was well heated. The glass door was left slightly ajar, and the wind carried the fresh scent of moisture. The balcony is filled with green plants. My mother-in-law's doing. There are pothos, spider plants, aloe vera, and a few pots of blooming Phalaenopsis orchids. Mom, do you remember? I look at those plants. Back then, our balcony was piled high with cardboard boxes and bottles. I remember. My mother-in-law smiled. Now it's so much better. We can see the river and grow flowers. She paused for a moment. Vivi, thank you. Here we go again. I leaned against her shoulder. Let's not talk about that, you have to say it, my mother-in-law insisted. Without you, I might still be picking up trash, piling the house so full you couldn't even walk. It was you who set me on the right path. My nose stung with emotion again. Mom, you walked up there yourself. I just gave you a little push. My mother-in-law wrapped her arm around my shoulder. We stood quietly, watching the lights on the opposite bank of the river. Each of those lights, behind every one, is a home. There were arguments, reconciliations, lows, and highlights. There were ordinary people like us, who emerged step by step from the chaos. Mom, what do you think is the greatest treasure in our family? I asked. My mother-in-law thought for a moment. It's family. We treasure each other. On the river, the last tour boat slowly passed by. The colorful lights on the boat reflected in the water, shattering into a shimmering gold. Grandma yawned. I'm tired, let's sleep. Sleep. We turned and went inside. As I closed the balcony door, I took one last look. The green plants swayed gently in the night breeze, full of vitality, like this home, like us, steadily, solidly, growing towards a better tomorrow. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. My in-laws are used to being frugal and always say I'm a spendthrift. It is said that daughters should be raised in wealth, and she took away all my dowry bit by bit. For my mother-in-law's 60th birthday, I spent money to arrange 6 tables and bought a 6-tier cake. After receiving a pile of gifts, not only was she ungrateful, but she also scolded me fiercely for being wasteful. My father-in-law, husband, and son also chimed in, saying I shouldn't have made it so grand. After a big argument with them, my husband started giving me the silent treatment, which led to me developing depression. As my condition gradually manifested physically, all my money went to supporting my in-laws, leaving me with no funds for treatment. My husband and in-laws called me a useless person, good for nothing, and said I might as well die. I also decided to stop seeking treatment. With my last savings in hand, I was ready to see the world. Unexpectedly, when the plane landed, I discovered that time had turned back 10 years. There were only 3 days left until my mother-in-law's 60th birthday. The phone screen displayed May 11, 2015. Only then did I realize I had actually traveled back in time to 10 years ago. At this moment, I was holding my phone, ready to order a cake, which cost a total of 1,068 yuan. It was meant for my mother-in-law's birthday celebration 3 days later. Recalling my past life, I spent my own money to host a grand birthday banquet for my mother-in-law, but instead of receiving her gratitude, I was scolded by her after the banquet, called a wasteful woman. Ever since I married into the Shin family, I've heard these words countless times, but for the sake of this family, I've always endured. Before, my mother-in-law asked me for my dowry, saying that my sister-in-law was studying in another city, unfamiliar with the place, and needed more expenses. Thinking we were all family and she was also my sister, I generously took out my dowry, but in the end, the result of my frugality was that I had little savings left, and even when I fell ill, no one cared about me. With my husband's deliberate neglect, I almost died of depression. Fortunately, I have returned to the present. The seafood shop owner saw me in a daze and asked with a smile, "Xiao Gu, did you reserve 6 pounds of sea shrimp and 6 medium-sized Spanish mackerels?" "Oh, not for now. I don't need them anymore," I snapped back to reality. Since they think I'm wasteful, I'll show them how frugal I can be. I changed my ways, no longer buying various fish, shrimp, beef, or lamb, and only bought a bunch of choice some. But then it occurred to me that buying vegetables would still cost my own money, and I didn't want to spend a single cent of it on this family. So I went to the supermarket instead and picked up leftover vegetables from the previous day, a big bunch for just 1 yuan. And I bought 3 whole bunches. After returning home, my mother-in-law saw me carrying a bag through the door and immediately started scolding me. "What did you waste money on today, you spendthrift woman? There's plenty, take your time looking, I'm off to work now." My mother-in-law disdainfully opened the grocery bag. She continued grumbling, "Xiao Gu, I'm not trying to criticize you, but with the little salary you two earn, you can't afford to eat lavish meals every day. If you spent less, our Shunjin would have less pressure." "All right, mother-in-law, I'll definitely change in the future." I endured it on the surface, but I would no longer continue as before. I absolutely refused to let myself be mistreated again. I grabbed my bag and was about to head out when my mother-in-law suddenly said, "Xiao Gu, you only gave me 20,000 from your dowry before. Shen Yan is studying in another city and needs money. Give me another 50,000. my mother-in-law came again. Just like she did at this time 10 years ago, before I traveled back in time, I foolishly transferred 50,000 to her right then and there. Out of the total 80,000 dowry, I was left with only 10,000 in my own hands, which I then continued to use to cover household expenses. But now, I spoke without holding back. Mom, the dowry is my parents' love for me. You can't just turn around and give it to your daughter, can you? My mother-in-law didn't expect me to speak so firmly and immediately flared her nostrils at me. Xiao Gu, I don't like what you're saying. We're all family. Your money is our money. Besides, a daughter needs to be raised well, and Shen Yan is your sister too. I'm also my parents' daughter. This is the money they gave me to be raised well. And I won't give it to you. After saying that, ignoring my mother-in-law's stunned expression, I got on my electric scooter and went to work. When it comes to electric bikes, the one I bought is quite large and a bit more expensive. The shop owner said it's more stable. Because of this, my mother-in-law often brings it up, saying, "Daughter-in-law, you're really too wasteful. An electric bike just needs to be rideable. Why buy such an expensive one? You could have bought two for that price." No matter how I explained, I still got scolded. Not only did my husband not help me, but he also told me to just apologize to my mother-in-law and admit my mistake. Back then, I was foolish enough to actually apologize and even gave my mother-in-law a big red envelope, and only then did she stop nagging about it. My father-in-law has nephritis and needs to go to the hospital every half-month to get his medication. To reduce the side effects, I asked the doctor to prescribe imported medicine, which costs 480 yuan per box, and he needs 2 boxes each time. I've been nagged by my mother-in-law about this more than once, saying, they have the same effect, why use imported medicine? What a wasteful woman. Back then, I foolishly explained that it was for my father-in-law's health, and it was okay to spend a little more. Looking back now, I realize how utterly foolish I was. I paid for all the medicine myself, yet I was so willing to spend, leaving myself with no money at all. On the way, I ran into my father-in-law returning from his walk. He reminded me, "Xiao Gu, my medicine is almost finished. Remember to find time to go to the hospital and get it for me." "Dad, I'm quite busy with work. Every time I went to the hospital before, I had to take time off, and my boss has been complaining. Why don't you go to the hospital yourself and ask the doctor to prescribe it?" My father-in-law seemed understanding, but what he said was, "Then transfer the money to me, Dad. I haven't gotten my salary yet, and I'm already broke. You'll have to pay for it yourself." My father-in-law seemed not to have considered that I might refuse to fetch his medicine, much less that I would withhold money from him, and he immediately turned a cold face toward me. "Xiao Gu, you've always been wasteful, and that's why you have no money now. You've even squandered the money for my medicine. What kind of misfortune has befallen the Shen family to bring a daughter-in-law like you into the house?" My father-in-law and mother-in-law have always been equally sharp-tongued, but I no longer care at all. I turned the doorknob and hurried off to work. Not only my father-in-law, but my mother-in-law also tested positive for HPV. Usually, I am the one who takes her to the hospital for tests and examinations, and asks the doctor to prescribe various effective medications. But she didn't appreciate it at all. Instead, she said to me, "Why bother with so many treatments? I don't have any discomfort at all. You're just wasting money." I patiently explained to her that without treatment, it could develop into cervical cancer, but she turned around and accused me of cursing her to get cancer. The neighbors and relatives, unaware of the truth, thought I was truly a malicious woman. What they didn't know was that all the money they said I was wasting was spent for their own good, and it was all my own money. Since they don't appreciate it, I'll just take everything back. When I got home in the evening, there were bok choy, cabbage, and eggplant on the dining table. My son put down his school bag and sat at the table. "Grandma, where are the salt-baked chicken wings I wanted, and the braised fish pieces?" My mother-in-law brought out the rice from the kitchen. "No chicken wings or fish today, only vegetarian dishes. We're used to eating rich food all the time, so let's change things up and have a full vegetarian meal." Usually, my son would side with his grandparents, and surprisingly, he obediently ate his vegetables. My husband even praised him for being so well-behaved. As for me, I kept my head down without saying a word, and after taking a few bites, I claimed I was full. In truth, after work, I had already eaten 2 roasted pig trotters and a bowl of beef noodles outside. In the evening, my husband questioned me about the conversation I had with his parents during the day. "Gu Xian, what do you mean? Why did you upset Mom and Dad for no reason today? What's wrong with me?" I pretended to know nothing. He continued, "I think you've been living too comfortably. You've been squandering money all the time. And I've always let you do as you please, but now you're not even getting medicine for my dad, and you're hoarding your own dowry. Shinjin, the dowry was given to me by my parents. I've already given your mother 20,000, and I won't give out another cent. Shinjin seemed taken aback by my attitude. What's going on? Don't you want this good life anymore? Are you thinking about divorce? Yeah, so what if we get divorced? Who's afraid of who? I spat out harsh words, seeing that I wasn't joking. Shinjin came over and wrapped his arms around me. Don't be ridiculous, you're a spendthrift woman. Who else could possibly put up with you? I'm the one who loves you the most. No one else would want you. He's average looking, can't even pass his driver's license test because he can't get past the psychological hurdle. In the past, he treated me extremely well, so I didn't mind his very ordinary family background. Now that I think about it, he's just a run-of-the-mill, overly confident man. Then let's sleep in separate rooms for a few days first. Seeing my firm attitude, Shinjin let go of me and went straight to our son's room. I had the bedroom all to myself, thinking that this was the wedding house my parents gave me, so why should I give up the master bedroom to my in-laws? Early the next morning, I informed my in-laws that they needed to move out of the master bedroom because I was going to sleep there. The in-laws exploded instantly, with my mother-in-law pointing at my nose and yelling, "Gu Xian, we've tolerated your usual wasteful habits, but how could you be so heartless as to kick us out of the master bedroom?" My father-in-law chimed in, "Exactly, sooner or later, we'll have Shinjin divorce you." I stood with my hands on my hips, raising my voice loudly. Why can't I sleep in the master bedroom? The house is my premarital property, and it's registered under my name alone. I was just too foolish before to have given up the master bedroom for you. The neighbors next door heard the commotion and came over to see what was happening. My in-laws felt embarrassed and agreed to move their things to the guest room. My husband and son woke up. When my son saw me, he impatiently gave an order, "Wasteful mom, I want braised beef for dinner tonight, and chicken soup too." He doesn't show me any respect at all, so I don't even glance at him and reply, "It's too expensive. I'm not buying it." From now on, our family will stick to vegetarian dishes. That way, none of you can say I'm a spendthrift woman. My son was momentarily speechless, and my husband came over to comfort him. Your mom cares about you the most. Whenever you want to eat something, she always makes sure you get it. All kinds of fish, shrimp, meat, eggs, yogurt, milk. When has she ever let you go without? As he said this, a hint of guilt flashed in my husband's eyes, but he quickly looked away. I don't care. I hop on my electric scooter and go grocery shopping. Usually, I think my in-laws are getting older and riding isn't safe for them, so I prepare a day's worth of groceries for them before I go to work. Just like yesterday, I didn't spend a single cent, picking up wilted vegetables at the supermarket again. The supermarket stalker saw me come twice and didn't charge me anything, looking at me with pity and sympathy. There are 2 days left until my mother-in-law's 60th birthday. As I was nearing the end of my workday, I suddenly received a call from my husband, telling me to hurry to the traffic light on Huanan Road. After asking for details, I found out that my father-in-law rode his bike to the hospital today. The trip there went smoothly, but he had to wait in line for 3 hours at the hospital before it was his turn to see the doctor. He was in and out of the consultation room in less than a minute after getting his prescription. I queued for another hour before I could get the medicine. He was so dizzy from waiting that on his way back, he crossed the road against the traffic and collided with a Lexus. After the traffic police arrived, he tried every possible way to play the victim, but was still deemed fully at fault. Repairing the Lexus would cost at least 60,000 yuan, but my father-in-law's electric car was not insured. When we first bought the electric car, I urged him to get insurance. But my father-in-law and mother-in-law both insisted that insurance was a scam and even scolded me for being wasteful. To spare his son the expense, my father-in-law had his son call me over, hoping I would help cover the cost, but I said I wouldn't pay a single cent, and I had to rush to school to pick up my son. Let the traffic police handle it as they see fit, and I also told my husband that I had no money. Upon learning the situation, my mother-in-law immediately called to scold me. "You heartless, wasteful woman, don't you still have exactly 60,000 from your dowry? Hurry up and take it out to pay for your father-in-law." "Impossible, that was given to me by my parents." Without waiting for my mother-in-law to continue her rant, I hung up the phone directly. Just as I arrived at the school gate, my son came out with his classmates, who laughed and teased, "Shen Haoming, your spendthrift mom is here to pick you up." Shen Haoming looked unhappy when he saw me. "Spendthrift mom, I heard grandpa got into a car accident, and you didn't pay his compensation. You're such a bad mom, I hate you." what an ungrateful little brat. I turned the car around and drove off without waiting for him to get in. Don't you hate me? Then you can walk home yourself. After arriving home, my father-in-law had already been brought back by my husband. He had hit his forehead and needed a few stitches. My son got lost while walking and called Shinjin, who came over and glared at me. Gu Xian, why are you so heartless? It's one thing to be wasteful usually, but you're getting more and more vicious. How dare you abandon your own son on the road? I shrugged indifferently and smiled. Well, he deserved it. I've been taking good care of him, feeding him well and all, but he never says a kind word about me and even outright says he hates me. If he hates me, why should I keep trying to win him over? Shinjin went out on his bike to look for our son, while my mother-in-law spent the whole night cursing and complaining. The son came back home, starving and with his stomach growling, only to find the dining table still set with nothing but a spread of vegetarian dishes. Why is it vegetarian again? I don't want to eat this. The son immediately showed his displeasure. Everyone was in a bad mood, and the husband had lost his patience. He yelled, "Eat it or don't." I was happy, so I lowered my head and ate a lot. The portions weren't large to begin with, and after my enthusiastic eating, they almost ran out of dishes. In just one more day, it would be my mother-in-law's 60th birthday banquet. According to the usual standards, all relatives and friends would be invited today. My husband knew I had been preparing for this for a long time, so he specifically transferred me 500 yuan. Gu Xian, you've worked hard preparing for Mom's birthday banquet. This is a reward for you. Are you trying to treat me like a beggar? Back when I was preparing for the birthday banquet, including gifts, I spent over 20,000, all from my own pocket, but this time, I'm going to be a real miser. Not a single penny will I spend. Thank you, dear. Since it's free, why not take it? I took the money, and when he tried to hug me, I pushed him away. That night, he still stayed in our son's room, while I had already moved back to the master bedroom, which was spacious and comfortable. The next morning, my mother-in-law, unlike her usual sour expression, was coaxing her grandson, saying, "Haoming, today is Grandma's birthday banquet. Not only will there be cake, but also plenty of delicious meat and fish. The vegetarian meals we had these past few days were all in anticipation of today. Okay, Grandma, I wish you a happy birthday. I will always love you." The grandmother and grandson even took a photo together. However, when Shen Haoming saw me, he made a disgusted face at me instead. I made an even funnier face back at her. My mother-in-law urged me, "All right, hurry up and go buy groceries. It's my birthday today. Did you order the cake? It's your birthday, not mine. Why are you asking me? I heard from Shinjin that you already picked one out for me. A 6-tier cake. What are you expecting? Didn't you all say I'm a spendthrift? I won't waste a single penny anymore." Seeing that I didn't speak, my mother-in-law took it as a default and gave another order. "Don't go to work this afternoon. Come back and cook." "Okay, Mom, I'll go buy groceries right now and make sure you're satisfied." I smiled with hidden daggers and went to the supermarket. This time, the supermarket had a pile of bitter gourds, winter melons, and pumpkins left, and I took them all. I also handled the unsold cabbages. I hauled away a full, large bag. Back at home, my mother-in-law was somewhat pleased and didn't scold me for being wasteful, probably thinking I was taking her birthday seriously. "If you come back to cook this afternoon, I'll go out to get my hair permed. You can manage on your own, right? Look, she perms and dyes her own hair, taking good care of herself. I just cut my hair short, and she scolds me for wasting money and being extravagant." In the evening, the relatives who came for the dinner arrived one after another. I specifically spent some money to buy melon seeds and peanuts to entertain the relatives first, and I was busy alone in the kitchen, stir-frying a large pot of bitter gourd, steaming several plates of pumpkin, stewing a large pot of winter melon, adding some vermicelli to the cabbage, and sprinkling some chili powder on top. Once I had everything sorted out, my mother-in-law and father-in-law finally returned. As the birthday girl, everyone gave her gifts and praised her for having such a good daughter-in-law. She started bad-mouthing me again. "Oh, what's so good about her? She's such a spendthrift." Just then, my husband and son walked in. My son went over to hug his grandmother. "Happy birthday, Grandma. I'm starving. I'm going to eat a ton today." With a kind and gentle expression, my mother-in-law patted Shen Haoming's head. "Good grandson, I'll save a big chicken leg for you later." I sneered inwardly. "Are you dreaming?" I divided all the dishes and placed them on the table, then called everyone over to eat. Everyone who entered the room was stunned. The table was filled with vegetarian dishes, not a hint of meat in sight. As for the 6-tier cake my mother-in-law had been looking forward to, All she got was a cupcake I had generously bought. Mother-in-law, happy birthday. You've always said I'm a spendthrift, and father-in-law and Shinjin also think I'm far too extravagant, so we've all decided to live a frugal and thrifty life. This is a cake I specially bought for you. Mother-in-law was so angry that she knocked the small cake out of my hand with one swipe. Gu Xian, are you deliberately trying to embarrass me? Mother-in-law, didn't you say we should be frugal? What did your daughter-in-law do wrong? Everyone found it unbelievable. If it were an ordinary day, it might be acceptable, but today is mother-in-law's 60th birthday, a day for entertaining guests. How could you be so careless? Everyone began to criticize me, talking over each other. Gu Xian, you've gone too far. Today is mother-in-law's birthday, and with so many relatives and friends invited, you actually served a table full of vegetarian dishes. Exactly. No wonder mother-in-law used to speak of you with tears of bitterness. I never imagined you could be so domineering and malicious. Shinjin must have been blind to marry a woman like you. You might as well get a divorce. How vicious. The first person to deliberately torment her mother-in-law deserves a miserable death. She might as well die. My husband allowed these guests to insult me, no matter how harsh their words, without uttering a single word in my defense. If it were the old me, I would have been utterly heartbroken. But now I no longer expect anything, nor do I care. Dear relatives and friends, look at my mother-in-law. She just got her hair done, and it cost over 1,000 yuan, but when I got my hair cut last time, it only cost 90 yuan, and she scolded me for being wasteful. When she fell ill, I took her to the hospital for treatment, using my own salary, and she still scolded me for being wasteful. When my father-in-law fell ill, I also spent my own money to buy medicine for him. They never showed a bit of gratitude. Instead, they aimlessly criticized and blamed me, calling me wasteful, so now I don't dare to spend money recklessly anymore. I even only dare to go to the supermarket to pick up vegetables that others are about to throw away. As I said this, I squeezed out a tear. Naturally, the relatives were not sympathetic and continued to help my mother-in-law scold me. I just kept crying, as if I had suffered a great injustice. My mother-in-law was so anxious she was stomping her feet. What are you crying about? You ruined my birthday party and now you're acting like the victim. As she spoke, she wanted to rush over and hit me, but I was quick and slapped her first. Shinjin also came to help his mother, pushing me aside. Are you crazy? How dare you hit my mom today? Yes, I hit your mom, back when I was in confinement. She ate meat herself while giving me rotten cabbage, the ngong one I was supposed to take. She replaced with brown sugar water. When the baby cried at night, she came and slapped me, telling me to get up and breastfeed. It was the first time Shinjin had heard me talk about this, and he suddenly looked at me with a hint of pity, but I ignored his gaze. It no longer matters. Relatives and friends suddenly got into the mood, grabbing melon seeds and slowly eating them. 8 years have passed since this incident, and it was the first time I mentioned it. My mother-in-law didn't admit it at all. Instead, she jumped up and scolded me. You're talking nonsense. I took good care of you with delicious food and drinks. It was you who couldn't eat. When the baby cried, isn't it a mother's duty to get up and breastfeed? Who told you to sleep so soundly? I was just giving you a gentle pat. Furious, I laughed coldly. Exactly, I was just too happy earlier and gave you a light pat too, seeing me act so differently from my usual docile self today. My mother-in-law picked up a broom, intending to hit me. My father-in-law also moved to help, but I grabbed a chair first. What's the matter? You've been taking kidney medicine for 3 years, and I've been going to get it for you every half month, all with my own money, and now you want to hit me? My father-in-law lowered his head, stunned. The relatives whispered among themselves, discussing the situation, but my father-in-law shamelessly said, so what if I did? Since you married into our Shin family, you're one of us. Why bother calculating so much among family members? I couldn't take it anymore and threw a chair directly at my father-in-law. Exactly, I insist on calculating. My dowry was swindled away by my mother-in-law and given to your daughter. If it were your daughter in my position, do you think she should calculate or not? My father-in-law, who had just been in a car accident and was still a bit traumatized, was so frightened that he fell to the ground. Since we've already torn up the facade, no one cares about saving face or dignity anymore. My son, starving and out of control, yelled, enough, I'm starving to death. You wasteful mom, you're really disgusting. I look down on you. I won't acknowledge you as my mother anymore. Furious, I slapped my son across the face. Shinjin rushed over to shield our son, but before he could scold me, I slapped him first. they have maintained their dignity all their lives and are known among relatives as a loving and happy family. Who would have thought they could be so despicable and shameful? The family doesn't respect me. Instead, they always scold and blame me." Shinjin felt deeply embarrassed and said to the relatives, "Dear relatives and friends, I'm sorry for making you witness this today. Please go back for now. We need to handle some family matters first, and we'll invite you over another time." At this point, what they have witnessed will provide enough material for conversation for years to come. Before the relatives left, each of them took their gifts with them. The only thing left behind was the borderline erotic novel that my cousin had self-published at his own expense. As the relatives departed, my son reluctantly ate some vegetarian dishes and went back to do his homework. My husband said he wanted to talk to me and followed me into the bedroom, leaving my in-laws outside roaring, crying and shouting that I was a venomous woman who deserved a bad death, that I should be run over by a car when I go out, and so on. "This is my home. If you don't want to stay, get out, all four of you." After throwing out those words, I went into the master bedroom, too lazy to deal with them. My husband followed me, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "Gu Xian, I didn't know about the postpartum confinement issue, and I had no idea Mom had taken your dowry. I'm really sorry." I pulled his hand away and sat down on a chair on the other side, about 2 meters away from him. "We fell in love and got married freely. Originally, my parents didn't agree, but before the wedding, I got pregnant. And your mother reduced the betrothal gifts. My parents still cared for me, so they gave me their pension as my dowry. I was too foolish to take out my own dowry for your mother." My husband still wanted to come closer. "Stay right there." I stopped him. "But no matter what, you shouldn't have hit my mom and thrown a chair at my dad. Go apologize to my parents right now and cook another meal for my mom, and I'll tell them not to make a big deal out of it," he said coldly, with not a trace of affection in his eyes. "Only endless blame," I sneered. "You're overthinking it. This house is my premarital property, given to me by my parents. Why should your parents eat and live here for free while constantly calling me a spendthrift? I'm done putting up with it." Looking back now, I feel extremely sorry for my parents. Fortunately, they were cautious. This house was bought before the marriage, and they even had a prenuptial property notarization done for me. A few years later, when I fell seriously ill, my parents spent all their savings to treat me. Neglecting their own chronic illnesses, they both passed away one after another. Since time has turned back 10 years, why should I still serve Shinjin's family, who treated me poorly? Thinking of this, I took out my phone and directly transferred the 60,000 yuan to my mom. Seeing my indifferent expression, Shinjin was frantic with worry and roared at me, "What exactly do you want? Isn't it enough that things have already gotten this far?" I remained calm and unhurried. "Am I the one causing trouble, or are you? Have you figured it out yet? You give me 4,000 yuan for living expenses each month, plus 2,000 for utilities and miscellaneous expenses. That leaves only 2,000. If a family of 5 has to live on 2,000 yuan a month, do you think that's enough?" Every meal was properly balanced with meat and vegetables, and all the expenses for your parents' hospital stays were covered by me, because my salary is twice yours. "Oh, actually, that's not true. You lied to me, saying your salary was 6,000, keeping 2,000 for yourself and giving the rest to me. Your actual average monthly salary is 32,000. We could have lived a very comfortable life." Shinjin widened his eyes and asked me, "How did you know?" Yes, if I hadn't traveled back to this moment, how could I have possibly known? Because our son got into Tsinghua or Peking University at 18. My husband was so happy that he bought him a 300,000 yuan BMW as a reward, yet when I was seriously ill, he never gave me a single penny, and even lied to me, saying he had given me all the money over the years. In reality, all the money was with his mother. Shinjin's biggest secret was exposed by me, and he panicked, rushing over to grab my hand. "Xian, listen to me. I did this for the sake of our family. I don't want to hear it. We no longer have a home. This is my house. You and your parents should move out as soon as possible." I took the divorce agreement out of the cabinet. I had prepared it on the very first day I traveled back in time. Now is the time to bring it out. Shinjin glanced at the divorce agreement. The thought of the money he had saved, even if it was with his mother, still counted as marital property and would have to be split with me in a divorce, made him reluctant. After all, his family was inherently stingy, frugal to the bone, a trait ingrained in their very genes. It's as if it would cost him his life. Shinjin immediately softened his tone to coax me. "Xian, we're husband and wife, and a little quarrel is normal. Let's not get divorced. We'll live well together from now on." "All right then, let's go outside and have your parents apologize to me." This made Shinjin quite uncomfortable, but he still took my hand and went out. "Dad, Mom, over the years, we've been a bit harsh on Xian. She has always worked tirelessly for us, please apologize to her." My mother-in-law was the first to disagree. "Son, have you lost your mind? You want me to apologize to her? She hit me and even threw a chair at your dad." I looked at her with a smug expression. "Since you won't apologize, then get out of my house." The Shin family had a house in the village, but it was already dilapidated and uninhabitable. If they left now, they would have nowhere to go. Shinjin walked over and whispered something to them. Surprisingly, my mother-in-law and father-in-law actually changed their attitude and apologized to me. "All right then, considering your sincerity, I accept your apology." After all that commotion, I was tired and went out on my bike to grab something to eat. I ignored them. The next day, Shinjin offered to give me an extra 3,000 yuan for living expenses, and as for the salary issue, he told me not to argue with his mother. "I won't make a fuss, but from now on, let your parents handle the grocery shopping. That way, I won't be accused of being wasteful for buying fish, shrimp, beef, or lamb, and if I bring back wilted vegetables, you'll just call me malicious." "Fine, I'll buy them. It's not like I haven't done it before," the mother-in-law declared arrogantly. The household finally enjoyed a few days of normal meals, but the 3,000 yuan only lasted a little over a week before the mother-in-law was asking Shinjin for money again. It was only then that Shinjin truly believed that when I used to buy lavish amounts of fish and meat, I had indeed been spending my own money. "I don't get a divorce because my parents are old, and I don't want to upset them any further. But after I transferred 60,000 to my mom, she called me and asked why I suddenly sent money. I just said it was to show my filial piety to them." Mom cried on the phone. "Sweetheart, if you've been wronged, just come back. Mom will always welcome you home. This will always be your home." Thinking back to a few years later, when my parents died because of me, I felt deeply guilty and bought several large bags of gifts to go see them. In the past, whenever I bought various expensive gifts for my in-laws, they would scold me for being wasteful. Every time, I could only buy ordinary gifts for my own parents. This time, I picked only the best to buy. My parents didn't ask too much when they saw I hadn't brought Shinjin and Shinhaoming along. We ate happily together, just like the happy family of three we used to be. My parents felt sorry for me and insisted that I take some delicious food home, but within a few days, the cured meat my mom had brought back and the homemade sausages in the fridge were all gone. I asked and found out that my mother-in-law had given them away, saying they were unhealthy. Furious, I felt like slapping her again. "Go get back everything my mother gave me. From now on, don't touch my things without my permission." I glared fiercely at my mother-in-law. "What's with the attitude? I need to go to the hospital for a follow-up checkup." "You're coming with me." My mother-in-law still ordered me. "Go see the doctor yourself. Don't expect me to spend another penny on you." She felt extremely wronged. "Daughter-in-law, how have you changed? You never used to speak to me like this before. You used to be so gentle and obedient. How wonderful you were. When I gave you my whole heart before, you trampled me underfoot. Now that I've taken it back, why are you falling apart?" I sneered, looking at her as if she were trash. My mother-in-law snorted. "I don't believe that without you, we can't survive. Sooner or later, I'll make my son divorce you." "Great, you'd better have Shinjin sign the divorce agreement as soon as possible." "I can't wait." Seeing that I'm no longer easy to control, my mother-in-law became even more distraught. She couldn't win in arguments, nor could she overpower me physically, so she rode her bike to the hospital by herself. Mother-in-law is not at home, so she asked me to go buy groceries. I still do as before, not buying vegetables or meat, but specifically going to pick up spoiled vegetables. After the previous incident, our family's scandal has spread everywhere. When I pass by the vegetable market, some people even intentionally leave unwanted vegetables for me. It's effortless to get them, so I take them all home, add some oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, potatoes, bitter melon, eggplant, and greens. When my son came home from school and saw it was the same old thing again, he was especially angry and called his father. My husband felt very sorry for me for secretly saving money at my mother-in-law's place behind my back, and my son also showed me no respect. Shinjin felt that he bore a great responsibility as well. After all, if the father doesn't respect the mother, how can the son respect the mother? "Don't make a fuss. Whatever your mother makes, you eat it. Thank your mother. And from now on, don't call her a spendthrift mom, or anything like that." The son's attempt to tattle over the phone failed, and when his grandmother returned, he cried and complained. saying he wanted to eat chicken wings. Without a word, his grandmother rode out to buy them. Meanwhile, the vegetarian dishes I had worked so hard to prepare went untouched by anyone. Feeling pleased, I went off to practice Pilates. In the middle of practice, someone handed me my phone, saying it had been ringing non-stop and they were worried it might be something urgent. I picked it up and saw it was my husband calling. Schwan, my mom was hit by a car while she was out. Hurry over and check on her first. Your mom gets into a car accident, and you want me to go check on her. Can you have a little conscience? I'm your wife, not your assistant. Besides, I'm out practicing Pilates. It'll take me 40 minutes to get there. Gu Xian, how long are you going to keep this up? Shen Jin, furious and exasperated, hung up the phone. I didn't go back until after I finished my practice. My father-in-law was sitting in the living room, extremely anxious. When he saw it was me, he spoke very rudely. It's you, this jinx, who caused my wife to get into a car accident. Father-in-law, aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning for saying such things? It was your precious grandson who insisted on eating meat, and it was your wife who insisted on going out to buy it late at night. The next day, I slept until dawn. And my husband didn't return until he was unshaven and disheveled. My mother-in-law's car accident was severe, and since she was riding against traffic without a helmet, she suffered a serious head injury and won't wake up anytime soon. There's also a risk she could become a vegetable. Seeing that I didn't care, Shen Jin said coldly, you clearly know it's dangerous at night, so why did you let my mom go out? What does that have to do with me? She insisted on going out. You all said I was wasteful, and now that I'm not wasting anymore, why can't you stand it? Shen Jin clenched his fist and then released it. You should know when to stop. Don't worry, I won't be wasteful anymore in the future. After all, diligence and frugality are traditional virtues, and I will definitely carry them forward. Shen Jin was even more speechless. I seemed to have a kind of calm madness that made him feel terrified. The next day, my mother-in-law miraculously woke up. Shen Jin was overjoyed and hired a caregiver to look after her in the hospital. When my mother-in-law found out, she scolded Shen Jin for wasting money. What's the point of spending all that money? You should have called Gu Xian to take care of me. It's her duty to serve me anyway. I followed behind Shen Jin, and when my mother-in-law saw me, she suddenly fell silent, like a speaker that had been cut off. What are you doing here? My mother-in-law gave me a cold look. I returned the same cold look. I came to see you make a fool of yourself. You're really tough, colliding with a big truck and still not dead. That shouldn't be the case. My mother-in-law was so angry that she spat out a mouthful of porridge. Shen Jin told me not to upset his mother anymore and asked me to leave if I had nothing else to do, but before leaving, I calmly said, Mother-in-law, be careful, I made this porridge. Aren't you afraid I might have poisoned it? My mother-in-law was so frightened she vomited, and I turned away with a wicked smile. A few days later, my mother-in-law miraculously recovered and was discharged from the hospital, and Shen Jin also bought a car. To overcome the difficulties, he actually managed to get his driver's license. But his ingrained instinct to save money led him to buy a second-hand car, and to show off. He even bought a Mercedes-Benz. I'll take care of picking up and dropping off the kids from now on. It's safer that way. I'll handle the grocery shopping too. Shen Jin seemed to have finally come to his senses. When my mother-in-law returned home from the hospital, a group of relatives happened to come by to visit her, while I was busy crying non-stop. Honey, how could you be so wasteful? If you wanted to buy a car, you could have just gotten a simple domestic one for commuting. Why did you have to buy a Mercedes-Benz? Upon hearing that her son had bought a Mercedes-Benz, my mother-in-law also thought he was being extravagant, but since he was her son, she turned to blame me instead. Look at you, can't even keep an eye on your own husband. You're becoming more and more wasteful, and he's definitely picking up bad habits from you. Shen Jin held back his mother. Mom, stop talking, I'll drive you from now on. Riding a bike is too dangerous. Mother-in-law, all right. But when exactly are you going to divorce that woman, old lady? If your son divorces me now, half of the 1 million you have is mine, and half of this car is mine too, I said triumphantly. My mother-in-law was furious, and after I threw a chair at my father-in-law earlier, he hasn't said much to me since. Shen Haoming didn't dare to keep saying he hated me, but he wasn't close to me either. Not long after, Shen Jin mentioned that the car's brake seemed to have a slight issue. I suggested checking it ourselves to save some money. My in-laws had no objections to this, thinking I had finally learned to be frugal, so Shen Jin went to check the brakes himself, thinking he was quite impressive despite not being a professional. In reality, he didn't find the cause and thought it was just the car giving a false alarm. My uncle's family invited our family over for a visit. My husband drove, with my father-in-law, mother-in-law, and Shen Haoming inside. But I didn't want to go to my uncle's house, and Shen Jin didn't force me, so, while I was leisurely sipping red wine, I suddenly received a call from the hospital. They said Shen Jin's car had lost control, crashed into the roadside guardrail, and fallen into the river. Due to the severity of the impact, his grandson and father-in-law died on the spot. My husband and mother-in-law were taken to the hospital for emergency treatment, but they were discovered too late. By the time the car was pulled out of the river, they had been submerged for a long time. In the end, my husband and mother-in-law were also declared dead. My sister-in-law, who was studying out of town, couldn't be reached no matter what. Later, I saw Shen Yan's photo in a news report about a crime of passion. As Shen Jin's wife, I inherited the assets he had saved up through frugality. That same day, I arranged for a full-service funeral package and hired a cleaning company to clear out all the belongings of others from the house. I decided not to live in this house anymore. I also sold several other properties I had invested in when housing prices were at their peak, successfully making a substantial profit. My parents praised me for my foresight, and my retirement savings multiplied several times over. After that, I kept getting promotions and raises. And when housing prices hit rock bottom, I bought a villa. Together with my parents, I started my new life. After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.